I've been watching an art channel on YouTube for a couple years now called PopCross Studios, and they've been a huge inspiration to me, especially in the digital painting videos that I do. And I've always wanted to be a part of the community redraw that happens at the end of every month, but either other videos got in the way, I never felt comfortable drawing the prompt, and a whole bunch of other excuses that never led me to do it. But I've always wanted to be a part of one, and this month he's tasked his subscribers with drawing a superhero between the ages of 8 and 16 to be part of this multiversal school in the overarching story on the channel. And I love superheroes, as you can tell by the video I did last week. And so today, I'm changing what I wanted to do for years and submitting my entry into the PopCross Studios July 2023 Community Redraw with this dream-based superhero. Let's get started. Whoosh! For most people, waking up can put an end to nightmares. They may wake up in a cold sweat, but once they've calmed down, there's never anything there. The same can't be said for Melvin Townyn. For him, nightmares were all too real. Melvin was born with a special ability that anything he dreamed of came to life. As you can imagine, this isn't a power that would be easy to control, especially for a young child. During the first few years of his life, Melvin's dreams would come to life and wreak havoc on a scale ranging from just his bedroom to the entire city. Things were never that bad though. There were only ever minor damages to the city, nothing that couldn't be paid off by raising taxes. However, when he was 5 years old, Melvin was going to ask his parents if he can sleep in their bed for the night, when he caught a glimpse of the horror movie they were watching. The movie had a huge mechanical spider with spinning saw blades on its back, rampaging through the city. It was an older movie, so to any adult they could tell it was just a person in a costume, but the mind of a 5-year-old is a wonderful thing. Deep into the night, Melvin and his parents were awoken by an explosion. They looked out the window to see fire and chaos. People were running through the streets screaming, while other people clad in body armor and assault rifles ran in the other direction. Although they were familiar with nightly chaos, they had never seen anything of this magnitude. Something was wrong. More wrong than usual. Quickly, throwing on coats and shoes, the three rushed out of the house, and when they saw the source of the panic, they knew what was going on. On top of a building, made entirely of shimmering blue light, was a giant spider, covered in metal plating and saw blades. It looked exactly like the monster from the movie Melvin's parents were watching, except way more grotesque, warped by Melvin's childlike perception. The mecha spider must have been awakened for a while because the military was in the city, pointing all kinds of weapons and artillery at the dream monster. Unfortunately, none of that would work. While Melvin's dream manifestations could interact with and destroy their surroundings, firearms and explosives didn't seem to inflict any damage to them. The only thing that made the manifestations disappear was Melvin himself, and that was only through physical contact between him and one of the manifestations. Melvin and his parents have done the same routine on many nights. This time would just be a little harder, and a lot more dangerous. Melvin's mom handed the boy off to his father, as Melvin buried his head in his father's chest, and the two of them ran into the building that the mecha spider was perched on. As they reached the roof of the building, Melvin was still cowering, huddled tightly against his father. Melvin usually had no problem confronting his manifestations and touching them to get rid of them, but this time he was terrified. The mecha spider was a physical recreation of the child's fears and misunderstandings of an old monster movie, and asking him to confront that fear head-on was a lot to expect. Nevertheless, both Melvin and his father knew that the dream manifestations never hurt Melvin before, so Melvin had to touch the mecha spider or the entire city would be gone by morning. Melvin's father rushed over to one of the legs of the manifestation and tried to coax Melvin into reaching out his hand, to no avail. His father was growing more and more frustrated with Melvin, and the mix of tiredness and panic made him raise his voice at the terrified child. The stern voice eventually turned into pleading and borderline yelling, but that just made Melvin bury his head deeper into his father's chest. All this talk about how everyone was going to die unless Melvin touched the giant spider was not the most encouraging of pep talks for the young boy. However, there was something that did change. The giant mecha spider right above them turns its attention from the military uselessly firing upon it to Melvin and his father. Being a physical manifestation of Melvin's mind, it had an inherent sense to protect its creator. The mecha spider stepped back and lowered its head to glare at the perceived threat. A panel opened up on its face, revealing 2 huge glowing fangs. The mecha spider let out a blood-curdling screech and reared its head back, ready to crush the 2 underneath its fangs. But before it could bring its fangs down on them, the spider stopped. Melvin held out his hand as if trying to tell the mecha spider to stop, that he wasn't in danger. The spider slowly lowered its head and pressed it against Melvin's hand, and in a wisp of bright light, it dissipated. For the first time that night, all was calm. The military was rolling out now that the threat was gone. Melvin and his father stood still for a moment. His mother was waiting for them somewhere below on the street, and they would find her soon, but right now, his father just needed a minute. He held his son close with tears in his eyes. Melvin hugged him back and apologized for not doing what he should have earlier. His father told him that it was okay, and began to stand up when the floor beneath them began to crumble. Before they knew it, the 2 were falling through a hole in the floor. The bell rang as Melvin closed his locker door. It was his first day of real school in 10 years, and already he'd been scolded twice for wearing mismatched slippers and having his coffee in a mug instead of a thermos. 2 things which he never had a problem with before. Ever since his father's death on the night of the mecha spider, Melvin's mother took her son to a remote cabin in an isolated mountain region. There, he would meet with sleep experts and other neurologists to study the connection between his conscious and unconscious thoughts, attempt to suppress either his dreams or his powers, and even learning to lucid dream to somewhat control what he manifested. Despite all these steps to help him, Melvin never wanted to go to sleep so the doctors could monitor him. The events from that night made him too scared to sleep, and as a result, Melvin began drinking several cups of coffee a day. He never grew to particularly like the taste of it, but the alternative was getting sleep and letting his dreams destroy everything around him. Melvin spent 10 years in the cabin, meeting with scientists and undergoing research and testing every day, and even taking school lessons on a special computer that can only be used for video calls. Melvin's mother didn't want him to fall behind in schooling while he was isolated, but she also didn't want him to stumble across something on the internet that would nullify years of hard work that everyone was putting in to help her son. When he turned 15, everyone agreed that Melvin was ready to live among people again. Although he couldn't lucid dream every night, he was finally able to control which of his dreams manifested into reality. Even the mecha spider that once terrified him as a child, and even a bit into his teen years, even followed directions from Melvin's unconscious mind. On the other hand, Melvin also came out of this isolation with a strong caffeine tolerance. He still drank coffee because it became standard routine for him, but it didn't do much to keep him awake anymore. Not that he needed to be. Of course, Melvin wasn't being sent to any ordinary high school. His mother had found a school that specialized in having kids with extraordinary abilities like him. While Melvin had gained some control over his powers and manifestations over the years, they still only appeared while he was asleep. Ultimately, Melvin wanted to see if he could eventually train himself enough to consciously manifest things without having to lay down for a nap. His first day of school hadn't even begun, and he already wanted to get it over with. He meant to keep his head low and focus strictly on consciously manifesting things. Making friends, doing extracurricular activities, and other run-of-the-mill high school things were not high on his bucket list, if they were on there at all. He drained his coffee mug into a water fountain and headed into the classroom. Now, this second drawing wasn't originally part of my plan. I thought it'd be cool to just show his powers in action because the first one, he's not really in any superhero garb, so there's nothing saying like, oh, this kid has powers. And so drawing this, him sleeping and manifesting the spider, I thought was a cool showcase of his abilities. And the spider itself is actually, it's based off of a dream I had a while ago. Might have been yesterday. Where there was just this big fire-breathing spider on my neighbor's house. And yeah, I didn't like that dream. That was scary. And I know the spider isn't spot-on realistic. It's very simple in its shapes. And a better artist would have looked up references of a spider and see how their bodies worked. The thing is, though, I don't like spiders. And so I would not have been able to actually look at the Google image slide of close-ups of spiders and been able to not freak myself out while drawing. So I opted to what I kind of remembered spiders to look like. But because it's a dream and dreams are often warped by perception, it didn't have to be spot on accurate. So I think it works for what it is. And also because dreams are also like muddy around like very specific details. After the screen recording ended, I added a motion blur to everything just to make it a little less defined in its shape and its outline. And I think it turned out really well. I really like how it looks and how it adds the effect. But the story for Melvin was a little hard to come up with because I kept bouncing back and forth between how far he was with his powers before getting into the school. I think the first one was like he didn't want to sleep at all, so like he never dreamed and therefore nothing bad ever happened. But then I figured that's good, but like it could go a little further, and like obviously his goal would be like control his powers in dreams so nobody gets hurt. And I feel like that part should have already be established when he gets into the school, so he has a bigger goal to work forward to. Like, I can control what I manifest from my dreams now, but I still have to be asleep for it. Can I do this while being awake? Let's go to the school and find out. That I felt like was a much better character motivation for the start of his story, and hopefully where it gets picked up by PopCross Studios in the redraw. And then I think it just lends more to his character because this is what he can do, but whatever you need for the story can be changed later on. Like what he's able to do with his powers can be expanded upon by other artists. Also, naming a dream character Melvin Townyn is kind of ridiculous, but I like that tongue-in-cheek humor, so I decided to go with it. And with that being said, here's Melvin Townyn and his giant mecha spider dream thing. And saw blades. It looked exactly like the monster from Melvin's movie parents made by physical contact between him. Why are you saying him? What is a him? Him. There's not even a single E. Works for the young boy. However, even the mecha spider that once terrified him as a child and even a bit into his teen years also came out of this isolation with a strong caffeine addiction. Wait! I missed a sentence. The giant spider just has a cup of coffee constantly. Oops. Alright, let's take that one from the top. Well, I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, actually. I was very nervous about this one, as I am usually with all things I do, but because drawing different age ranges is something I still need to work on, but adding in the sleep-deprived coffee addict aspects, I think gives it enough suspension of disbelief where it's like, yeah, this could pass for a 15-year-old. And I was in high school once. The coffee addiction thing, not that far of a stretch. It's real. It's weird. But it happens. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching the video. Be sure to look out for Melvin Townyn when PopCross Studios puts out the community redraw at the end of this month. I'm excited to just even see it there. And if you want to see more superheroes and more, superhero attire, you can check out the video I did last week where I drew Nimona characters as superheroes. And once again, I'll probably put either the latest video down here or the playlist of all my digital painting. And yes, as I've just gotten used to all the end cards being on the left side of me because my camera flips things around, they're now going to appear on my right side. So here are all the beautiful things that you can watch after this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, feel free to hit that like button. It's so easy that you can do it in your sleep. Anyway, I'm KyngPin Creations, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.